So, hi there. Bit of a disappointment for New South Wales against Queensland yesterday.
Yeah, we got touched up in the Rugby League State of Origin game last night, so the old banana benders were just too good for us.
Yeah, and it was the best of three.
Yeah, they won the first, we won the second, and they got the third. So
Wow.
Good on you, Queensland.
Ah.
I'm not happy, but hey, we're a good sport down here. So.
Oh, yes. And I mean, the thing about Queenslanders, of course, is that's where Castlemaine Forex comes from, isn't it?
It does.
You know.
And you know why it's called Forex?
No.
Yeah, with the 4 X's.
Yeah. Why is it called 4X?
Well, the unkind answer to that question is because I don't know how to spell the word beer. So.
I still remember all the adverts with the guy in the tree, and the other guy's gone and fallen into the swamp, you know, and the one guy says, "There's no crocodiles in here, are there?" Nah, mate, nah. The sharks ate all the crocodiles.
Exactly.
Oh dear. So I didn't know when we spoke on Monday until it was yesterday morning. I got a message from it was a group message, but it was from Jerome over there in Belgium, who obviously I'm not speaking to now, seeing as Belgium beat England 2-0 on Sunday. So, rightly so, yeah. and so I didn't know anything at all about the petition that has got your name on it, and it's a petition aimed at more than one person. Is that right? Have I got that bit right?
I guess it's aimed at a couple of people, but it's also aimed at the consciousness of people who are interested in true justice.
Yeah.
So it's a petition for everyone in many ways.
Okay.
And so we thought it was appropriate.
Yeah. If I pop it up, would you like to read it out for us?
Sure.
I've got it here ready to go. Just need to do that, and there we go. Look at that, eh?
Let me see. Here we go. Yep.
And look who's on top of the list of those that have signed the petition.
I know. You can always rely on a Belgium person, right?
Yeah.
So, and you'll see from the numbers clicking over there, there's about 1,200 people have signed, and we've only been up a day and a half.
Yes.
Or maybe it's 2 now.
Yeah.
But so that's good. Now, I might just look at my phone, Paul, to read this because it might be a bit easier for my eyes to read it from my phone. Oh, no, I can see that. Okay. Sorry. Yep. So would you like me to read it?
Please. Well, first of all, there we go. It says here, Mark Hoddinot started this petition to Governor of Wisconsin and one other. Yeah,
well, the one other was the Attorney General of Wisconsin.
Oh, of course, yes, Josh Call.
So that would be the legal officer of Wisconsin. So that's who it's intended for, in the direct sense, but indirectly it's intended for everyone with a conscience about social justice matters.
Yeah.
So maybe I should just, before I read it, maybe I should give some background to it, if you would like.
Please do. Yes. Yeah.
This centers around the whole issue of who benefits, if you like, from people being imprisoned, right?
Well,
and that's why there's a fairly important and intended preliminary statement about this petition, right? So people understand the background of it. And perhaps I should just launch into that, and then we will talk about it afterwards. So follow my words, and then you'll roll the screen for me. When someone commits a serious crime and is fairly and independently judged to be guilty, then a term in prison is often appropriate. Prison is intended to serve a number of purposes, including 1, a punishment for the wrongdoing, 2, protection for the community, 3, a deterrent for others not to offend, 4, a sense of retribution for those harmed by the crime, and 5, a mechanism to reform and correct hence the name correctional centres, to correct the behaviour of the convicted. Some crimes are deserving of long terms of imprisonment, indeed even some for life, others for shorter terms, and for many, a prison term is often not the best way to fulfil the 5 objectives above.
Mm-hmm.
No one would deny the fact that there are many wrongfully convicted citizens in US prisons.
Yep.
With the highest rate of incarceration in the world, US prisons are independently assessed as having at least 60,000 wrongfully convicted inmates at a cost of $2.5 billion a year. The flood of exonerees in recent years lays truth to the fact that there is a very unhealthy level of conviction over truth in the United States. Stephen Avery, a prisoner in Wisconsin, is known by many and has already spent 33 of his 38 adult years in prison. After his first significant prison episode of 18 years, from 1985 to 2003, he was exonerated. Then in 2005, he was arrested again and ultimately convicted of a serious crime and then sentenced to life, largely because he wouldn't admit guilt due to his protest of innocence. For the last 4 years, his current post-conviction lawyer, Ms. Kathleen Zellner, who has successfully released 20 wrongfully convicted citizens in the USA, has been compiling a vast array of independently verifiable, newly discovered evidence supporting Mr. Avery's innocence. This evidence is multifaceted, including scientific testing, the deliberate withholding and destruction of evidence by the state, along with first-hand accounts disproving the narrative that was promoted by the state in Mr. Avery's prosecution. For 33 years, Mr. Avery has been a model prisoner, remaining civil in his behaviour and consistent in his belief in his innocence. He has repeatedly said he does not know who committed the crimes he was charged and convicted with, and never seeks to recklessly accuse others and deny them the presumption of innocence that he himself never received. Mr. Avery's current application to the Wisconsin Court of Appeals is both comprehensive and compelling, and should, at a minimum, cause serious doubt over the reliability of his conviction. As a model prisoner who offers no safety threat to others, he should be granted release on bond while the appeal process unfolds. Such a release should come with conditions as a matter of due process, including a significant bond, tracking control, restrictions of movement, and routine reporting obligations. Such a decision would not only be fair, but would remove a large cost burden on the state, over $40,000 per annum, from his incarceration, and enable him to be productive in assisting with the care of his elderly parents. The 5 objectives of imprisonment mentioned above will have been satisfied by the following. 1. Stephen Avery has already served 33 years in prison, arguably all as an innocent man. 2. Stephen Avery did not commit the crimes he was convicted of, and as such poses no threat to the community as a consequence. 3. Stephen Avery's imprisonment as a wrongfully convicted man acts as no deterrent other than to erode the trust in the criminal justice system and thwart the pursuit of the true criminals in this matter. 4. Retribution is not intended to impact an innocent man and is shallow and hollow for the victim's family if the imprisoned man is innocent. And 5. While Stephen Avery is not a saint, there is, as an innocent man, nothing to remediate except perhaps to offer him an apology and to promise to correct the behaviour of the criminal justice system for the future. So, we, the below-mentioned petitioners, seek the release of Stephen Avery on bond pending the resolution of his appeal proceedings and subject to certain obligations and restrictions. We petition the Governor of Wisconsin and the Attorney General of Wisconsin in the interest not just of Mr. Avery, but also for the health and healing of the criminal justice system, and hopefully, if at all possible, to allow true justice to be delivered to Teresa Halbach. And finally, there are no doubt other prisoners who are also deserving of this consideration.
Absolutely.
So the purpose of the petition, obviously it's focused on Stephen, there's no question about that, but it's really trying to draw light on what is being served by Stephen being in prison at the moment. What are, if you go back to those 5 objectives, and I answer them towards the end, what is being served by him being there? And you know, and I know a lot of people think, oh well, what are you asking for someone just to let him out because you don't think he did it? Well, there's far more to that than that simple analysis, and it is a long shot type petition thing. But part of this whole process to do with Stephen and Brendan is not just about them; it's about criminal justice reform and whether the incarceration of people and how, you know, obviously the wrongful incarceration in many cases, but also just the way in which the prison system is used in the US as a punitive measure that in fact fuels the private prison system by bringing customers in at a rate 5 times what happens in your country, Paul, and in mine. It just doesn't make sense at all. Now, Stephen is convicted of a very serious crime, so I'm not trying to underplay that. But I just think we need to be more thoughtful and more intelligent about the way we best deal with these things. And the petition is trying to address a whole range of matters beyond just Stephen himself and Brendan.
Yeah. Does Stephen know that you've got this petition up and running?
Yeah, he does now.
Yeah. He does now. He didn't before.
No, I mean he's keen to. He's keen to do whatever, but he's aware now that it's up and running. So, yeah.
I mean, the thing is that we saw recently in that trial 4 of Sean Ellis how the judge, when given the information, I believe her name was Judge Ball, ordered that Sean Ellis be released and a new trial granted, and he was allowed out on bond with the ankle. And so really that's what we're saying. And I remember as I was watching it, the parallels between Sean Ellis in this case are profound, aren't they? They
are profound. All of the issues in his case, Sean Ellis's case, have a touch point with Stephen's case. And no one's trying to mitigate the seriousness of and the damage a true criminal can create to others in the commission of a crime. But there are ways that you can deal with the consequences of that are far more powerful and helpful for a society than just to throw people en masse into prisons, right? Let alone, in Stephen's case, a wrongfully convicted man. But just generally, there is a lot to be gained for society, for respect for the justice system, to think about what is the best way to deal with people offending people. And I mean, offending people come in all sorts of categories and intensity and repetition and so on. So it's not one size fits all. But just to be throwing people into prison because, I mean, that's the simplest and, in my view, unintelligent way of dealing with everyone as if they're all the same is just, in my view, lacking merit. And now we see the consequence of that now because of just the massive amount of people in prison, 2.3 million of them in the US alone. So,
yeah, I was going to say your estimate of 60,000 wrongfully convicted. It could be well over 100,000, couldn't it?
Easily. Yeah. And just imagine, I mean, these are wrong. A good number of these, this is not Stephen, but a good number of these people who have intelligently and willingly, in a sense willingly, admitted guilt when they knew they weren't guilty. Why?
Yeah.
Because the system is against them. So they do some crime, or maybe they don't even do the crime, and they get bullied they get told by the police or the prosecutors or whomever to say, well, if you're found guilty for this, you're going to get 20 years. But if you admit your guilt, you'll probably get 6 or 7. And, the unrepresented, uneducated, accused person's going to say, I didn't do this, but, 6 or 7 sounds a lot better than 20.
Yep.
And something like 98% of all felony charges in the US, that is charges that would result, if found guilty, would result in some sort of incarceration or potentially so. About 98% of those never go to trial.
Yep.
Why don't they go to trial? The court system would stop on it. It'll be dead in its tracks if everyone took their charge to trial with a jury and etc. So there's this massive amount of pressure, reverse pressure back on the prosecution teams and their supporting people to get people to confess or to plea bargain another sentence, because the court system can't handle those people. So, and that results in, of course, I'm not saying that's the case in Stephen's, because Stephen's case is much more significant than just that, but you get a lot of people confessing to crimes on the basis that option B is a better, worse option than option A. So,
yeah, I think everything sort of everything combined. It's the cumulative effect of everything in the so-called legal system, which needs to be addressed, isn't it?
Yes.
You know,
let's go back to the basic issue. I mean, you can take this at quite a deep level, Paul. You go back to say, well, why do people commit crimes, right?
Yeah.
You go back to that issue. Why do people, steal? Why do people kill? Now, there are a whole host of reasons for that. So you go back to that circumstances, because I don't think, with some notable exceptions who've just obviously got some DNA problems, most people aren't instinctively, they're not born thieves, they're not born murderers, they're not born rapists, they're not born bank robbers. Life circumstances have pushed them down a pathway that gets them into criminality. Now, you can't stop all of that, but you can stop a lot of that with greater social equity in the way people are living. So most people, if they can live a respectful life, in other words, earn enough money to maintain themselves, they don't need to pursue criminal activity. Now, there will be a lot of people who do that just because that's the nature of the person. But there are a lot of people in US prisons, and a lot of them are there who could have easily taken a different fork in the road and ended up in a different way. And then added to that is how is the criminal justice system constructed in a way to deal with these people? So how do you deal with rogue cops and rogue DAs and rogue judges? They're almost totally immune to prosecution. So they've got no disincentive if they behave badly. And then the process of appeal, right? Appeal processes, whether it's at a local level or a intermediary level or at the Supreme Court, they're just as much a part of a justice system as is the prosecution. So why are appeal processes so hard, right? They shouldn't be taking this amount of time to deal with. You want these people out of jail, back in society, being productive citizens, unless they've proven themselves consistently that they're unreliable for that to occur. But the system seems to really want to capture these people like fish out of a pond. Mm-hmm. And there's no disincentive for that current system at the moment, as I see it, to behave in any other manner. And so you end up with this rogue behavior that is just about putting people into concrete and steel cells. So,
well, yeah, I mean, in particular, when you think about the fact that it was in October of 2017, that's over 3 years ago, that Kathleen Zellner filed her motion and pointed out to the world that, Stephen Avery is clearly innocent. You've got a bullet with no bone fragment, but wood on it. Eventually, the case obviously went to the Court of Appeals. They remanded it back, both on the issue of the CD that was denied to Dean and Jerry 12 years ago, and the bones being handed back. It's almost as if, you know, the fact that the case keeps getting denied by Angie. There's more and more stuff that gets churned up and we find about. But there has to be a certain amount of people in Wisconsin looking at this case and going, what on earth is this Judge Angela Sukadich trying to do? You know, why not have this evidentiary hearing? Why not just, you know, stop fighting it, realize that they've got it wrong, that they've had it wrong all along, realize the fact that there was a reason why the investigation was so poor, right? You know, they fabricated all this evidence against Steve. But for goodness sake, you know, let go of this ever rising balloon and start to do the right thing. It's been 3 years now of what I would describe as being obstruction from a judge who thinks that she is not only the judge, but she's the prosecutor, and she's the judge, and she's the executioner.
Correct. I mean, that's what I say. You know, the appeal, post-conviction appeal process is just as much a part of the justice process as is the original investigation and prosecution. But they almost behave in a way that they resent the fact that appeal processes exist, right? Yeah. In a decent society, irrespective of anything else, in a decent society, if you take this case back to 2006, yes, 2006, Brendan Dassey should never, ever have been allowed to be interviewed by police without a responsible person present. I don't mean a parent, by the way, because they don't necessarily know the law either, yep. But either a legal advocate or a lawyer. Let's just say that did happen. Let's go back to February and March of 2006. And in any of those interviews, sitting next to Brendan is an independent legal advocate whose duty is to advocate for Brendan legally, okay? And under interview and under videotaping, pretty much 95% of the questions Brendan was asked the reply would have been directed, no comment, right? Yep. That's what would have happened. They would not have had their so-called confession from Brendan, so there'd be no prosecution of Brendan, and they wouldn't have had their salacious moment to pollute the jury pool against Stephen. In fact, they wouldn't have even had a case against Stephen, because that's Brendan came along because their case they were trying to build couldn't stand the test of independence and fact. And so Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey would not have been imprisoned, and the process could have easily been stopped by having, as I said, you know, a proper advocate present with Brendan. It should have also been stopped by virtue of Ken Kratz's disgraceful utterances in the public press conference, you know, a day or two later, when he basically lied. Really, that's basically what he did. So there were many opportunities along the way, and the behavior of Len Kaczynski and Michael O'Kelly, in the way they effectively worked for the state against Brendan's best interest, should have had everything thrown out against Brendan as well. So, and therein, like, the judges failed to act properly and independently, but there were moments 15 and 14 years ago when this matter could have been nipped in the bud, people rapped over the knuckles, and the matter would have gone away. And hopefully the true culprit in Teresa's disappearance and, we presume, murder could have been properly prosecuted. So I find it disgusting that we can get so far down the track, and Kathleen Zellner and others have to go through this process that should not be necessary. But nonetheless, it has been necessary. But as you quite rightly point out, Paul, they're providing barriers all the way along just to slow this up and discourage it, in their opinion anyway, discourage others. Whereas they should welcome the truth. They should be welcoming the truth rather than trying to thwart it, which is what has been going on so far.
Yeah, I mean, so you talk about the fact that of is it 33 years of his adult life he's spent
wrongfully convicted.
And
Just think about that for a moment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you were talking then about the trial, and then Brendan, the way he was coerced. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think there was any possibility, had Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey been in either the UK, Australia, that any of this would have happened. That the cases, both cases, would have been thrown out. Particularly the obviously the 2007 case, because of the way that the investigation was handled, and because of the actions of bizarre people like Ken Kratz, who he's not the only one over there in America that behaves the way that he does. Having read about other prosecutors that are equally
like Kevin Crane in Ryan Ferguson's case.
That's right, Jim Harding.
Yeah.
But the point is that, as I say, I think the reason why it wouldn't be allowed to happen in the UK or in Australia is because there's no way that we want to put clearly innocent people behind bars, but particularly in America, where the system over there is certainly here in the UK. I've spoken with Dr. Sandra Lane about this, and when somebody is exonerated here in Scotland, they will only get compensation once the true identity of the person responsible has been established.
Mm-hmm.
But in America, again, hopefully the same will happen. That Steve will be let out, and the true perpetrators found. But it's going to cost the state so much in compensation.
Yeah, and that's their fault.
Has it been worth it?
Of course, it's not worth it.
Of course,
there's absolute Stephen's incarceration over the 33 years he's been in prison is probably a total close to $1.5 million, right? Just in his occupancy costs, his rent, if you like, let alone the money they spent on the trial, let alone his lost economic capacity to society. You total that up and amortize that cost over time, there's probably $10 million that's been wasted already on the prosecution, incarceration, and lost economic opportunity to the society of Stephen being in prison. Yeah. I mean, this is not the way to handle these matters. This is fundamentally what the problem is. Yeah. And I'm not in. I mean, I can argue the case both ways, by the way, but I'm not in favour of elected DAs. That politicizes the process. They become mindful of, have I prosecuted enough people, or the electors like me because I've been easy on someone they didn't like. You politicize the judiciary. It shouldn't be like that. Just have a panel of independent of a sort of a group panel of people appoint suitably qualified persons, right, who are accountable to their professional skills and ethics, and if they don't do a good job, you boot them out. But when you make them accountable at the ballot box, you influence their behavior. And someone might say, well, if you have the other system of appointing DAs, well, then you just get jobs for the boys. But I think that's possible, but I doubt whether that's more likely than getting a politicized judiciary. And so we end up, I mean, one of the things, just to add to this story, and there are so many facets to it, but the behavior of what went on in the jury room in Stephen's trial is just another matter that is just an absolute disgrace. All those things should have caused that case to be thrown out just on those points alone. And the very best of defense counsel cannot overcome the very best of corrupt individuals on a jury, right?
Yep. You
can argue the best case you possibly could argue and throw all the evidence out there that's extremely compelling. And as we know, that even after Dean Strang and Jerry Buting had spent 4 weeks defending Stephen that the first count around the jury room was 7 not guilty, 2 undecided and 3 guilty. I reckon that was a pretty good result, if you ask me. But how you turn all those not guilties and undecideds into 12 guilties can only tell you that bad behaviour went on in the jury room.
Absolutely.
So,
and at some point, this will all be brought to the public's attention, I'm sure.
Yes. So, obviously, as you know, Paul, I mean, and as is for you and all our supporters, is that we want Brendan and Stephen released as 2 men, right? For their sake and the sake of their families. But if their release doesn't come with a genuine effort towards genuine CJS reform, criminal justice reform, I personally will be really disappointed. Now, I'm not a US citizen, of course, nor are you, but these things have to have an effect way beyond the individuals. And so, but that takes leadership. So you have to have leadership in positions of authority. Mark Gundam, for example, was very keen to introduce the Avery bill after Stephen's first wrongful conviction, and I commend him for that. But we need leaders. Leaders are people who have a vision and also have the courage to see things through, irrespective of what other people might think. And so if we can get 3 or 4 major reforms in criminal justice matters, the 2 that I would pick straight away are, proper representation for juveniles. And in the absence of that, there can be no police interviews. That would be the first one. So juveniles should have legal representation at all times, and you can't interview them without it. And the second thing is to impose a system of punitive action against law enforcement officers who knowingly behave in an improper manner. So they know there are consequences to bad behaviour. If we just get those 2 things, I'd be satisfied.
Yes, and for me, one of the things I think we should definitely have is a better system of looking at forensics, and certainly not have a situation where the person doing the testing has been told to place somebody in somebody's garage, which is just it's just ridiculous,
It's too incestuous, right? When Tom Fassbender said that in writing to Sherry Culhane, try to place her in the house or the garage. I mean, it totally erodes any faith in the independence of those bodies, And I don't know what would we call them? Independent commission. In Australia, we have a body called the Independent Commission Against Corruption. Each of the states have that. That are, while they're appointed or it's created out of government, they're independent from government, and so they're not influenced by government. And bad behaviour gets called before them, right? So these issues of what went on in the labs in Wisconsin in Stephen's case, and no doubt in many others, just like we saw in that case in Massachusetts with the drug scandal thing or whatever it was called. People, those things only happen when people don't perceive any consequence of behaving badly.
Yeah.
Right. Here's a simple analogy. If you thought that no one would issue a parking ticket if you parked in a no parking zone, that no one would issue, you reckon that might encourage people to park in no parking zones? Absolutely, it would. They don't see any consequences of doing so.
Yeah.
So there needs to be consequences for bad behaviour, serious ones, from law enforcement officials, be they prosecutors, police, or scientists, or whatever. But at the moment, they just behave in this bubble of indemnity. So it's an area that really needs to be changed.
Yeah, going back to Sherry Culhane, she's at the State Crime Lab. She doesn't need Tom Fassbender to tell her what she needs to find. She knows that she's looking for evidence of Teresa Halbach on anything that they brought forward. Yeah.
Or she knows that, but all she really needs to know is I've got something here. I've got to come up with a DNA profile.
Yeah,
that's all she has to do. She doesn't even have to know whether it's Mickey Mouse or Stephen Avery, right? Just tell me what the profile is and see if that then matches something.
But the fact that he's saying try to put her in the bedroom or the garage, that's implying that, you know, he wants her to do more than just what her job involves.
Correct. Exactly. He's you know, if you've got a bit of loose DNA over there and you can add it into this example of a garage, that'll be good. Thanks, Sherry. Right?
Yeah. If you've got a groin swab that you can just rub on something, do that. You know, like Wiegert did with the groin swab that was supposedly thrown away and ends up as being the hoodlap swab.
And Tom Fassbender would want you to believe that he's just this nice guy, you know, trying to do a job, and you know. But that's just sinister behavior. And it's scary that they think that that's okay, you know. And, you know, the analogy I often make, and when we talk about Brendan's interview and with Fassbender and Wiegert, how they treated him, the question that doesn't have an answer, not as yet anyway, is would they like their child, their son or daughter of Brendan's circumstances, to be put through what they put Brendan through? An unrepresented minor with intellectual limitations, clearly confessing to a crime that he has no idea that that's what is the effect of his words, and they were okay with that. I mean, a proper professional should have, one, made sure he had representations, or at the very least, if they realise, hang on a minute, this is not looking good, we better stop this interview, because if we try to pursue this interview without representation, this confession will be thrown out and we can't rely on it, right? But no, they were willing to do anything, you know. Well, just tell me, Brendan, who shot her, right? I mean, seriously, they had such a commitment to getting something out of Brendan of words that they had constructed. You know, professional behavior and their moral compass was totally lost. And Brendan became the victim of that improper behavior.
Let's have a quick look, just before I let you go, and see where the petition is up to now.
While you're doing that, I just encourage everyone, you know, to pass it on to people and invite them to, you know, obviously we don't want people just to sign the petition if they don't agree with it. We want people who do agree with it, and we respect people may not agree with it. So we're not asking you to force you to sign, but if you do agree with it, we've got just on the Facebook supporter sites, we have, I don't know what the number is, but more than 100,000 people listed on those sites, let alone on Twitter and other forums. But, you know, we need to get, we should be able to get some good numbers. So,
I mean, I should be able to put the link in the description below. But I mean, I get every day I get messages from change.org to tell me about new petitions. So anybody can just go to change.org and presumably look up Stephen Avery, and you would get this petition come up.
Yes. In fact, I will every so often, thank you, by the way, everyone who's signed the petition so far, but I will every so often make a comment. You'll see on that header there, you'll see petition details and then comments and updates. I'll add some updates and stuff in there, but I just ask people who are passionate about this and believe in what the petition is trying to achieve is to encourage other people to do likewise if they also believe in what we're trying to achieve here. And we can make a difference, and it's a good talking point as well. You know, it's a good thing to talk about the case and about the sorts of things we've spoken about tonight, Paul, apply to lots of people, not just to Stephen and Brendan. So,
absolutely. Well, we've up at 1,198, so just under the 1,200.
Yeah.
but I would suspect that because this has been going since. Does it tell us when the petition was started?
It was started on. Well, I actually had it prepared and ready on Sunday, but I didn't formally release it until Tuesday, I think. So it's been going 2 days. So it was actually up there without being formally advised, because I had it up there in draft for a couple of people to read first to make sure they were happy with it. So, so in effect, you would say it's been up there now a little over a day and a half, I guess you would say. Yeah.
Excellent.
So,
well, I'd just like to thank you once again for popping along and having a wee chat with us. I realise it's very late there in
Australia. That's where we are.
Australia, in New South Wales.
New South Wales.
But
never too far from Avery salvage yard. Yeah.
Yep.
So
I did have my hoodie on. My hoodie on earlier today, because when she dragged me out at 7:45 this morning for a walk all the way round, what was it? It was about an hour's walk that she took me on, and
I saw a photo of her, and it looked like she was trying to channel Millbilly with that beanie she had on. She had an orange beanie, right?
Would you like a quick look at that?
Yeah, let's have a quick look.
Let's see if we can get a quick look at that. This is a beanie for Brendan, isn't it? Let's see if I can do this and do that. Click on that, and then it comes up, and I put use. The wee dog is called Darcy.
Darcy the dog.
Is the wee dog's name. If I do that and click on that, then I should be able to come down to come on, move. Thank you. Now, why is that not working as I wanted it? Let's try this again. Let's try this. There we go. Today would be good. Thank you. Yeah, got it. Okay, here we go. Come back to here. Get to there. Go to here. And then, if I click on this one here,
yes,
put this one at the end. There we go.
Oh, there she is, Mrs. Millbilly.
Well, yeah. there's the reader. Yeah, she's parents are one of the parents is a Yorkshire Chihuahua mix, so that's known as a Chalky. A miniature Yorkie and a Chihuahua produces a Chalky, right? But then this one is completely different from Mum because mixed with a Dachshund, so you get a Dorky. so I said, because there was one day when she headed over across the road to the next door neighbour that lived nearby, and I left and locked the door. Well, she hadn't taken her key, had she? So when I came back, she was inside, and she said, "You were lucky that the next door neighbour had a key. Why did you lock the door?" So I just said to her, I said, "Eunice, look at you. That's you on your walk, and you remembered to take your door key with you." But yeah, there she is in the beanie.
She looked great.
This was before before 8 o'clock this morning, and I tell you, it was that cold you could see your breath. You know, when it's a really frosty morning. Yeah.
Yeah. Quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, wearing the beanie for Brendan. So thank you, darling, for that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, lovely to speak with you, Paul. Thanks very much. And
thank you for coming on.
Thank you for all the supporters who are tuned in. It's always nice to be able to speak with them as well.
Yeah, I will. As I say, I'll put a link to the petition in the description below, so that anybody who hasn't yet signed it can go and do so, and hopefully spread the word around the world, so that everybody gets to.
I'll give you a little teaser, by the way.
Oh yeah.
That you don't know anything about, but something's going to come up soon regarding our dear friend Richard McAdam, Mericose. So stay tuned for something on that in the weeks ahead. So yeah. All right. All the best, and thank you again.
Thank you, and speak to you soon. Well, hopefully we'll have another chat on Monday morning as per usual. Well, my Monday morning, your Monday evening, along with Dr. Silkman, who is in the chat here, and Billy. Hopefully, we'll also be able to pop in and join us. Okay, I'll say cheerio. Thank you to everybody for joining in. Bye for now.
Bye for now. See you, everyone. Bye now.